last video of the day, we got another Pat CC. Everything Idiocracy predicted that came true. So let's see.
Was
Let's
a
see
movie
how much of
you
this
were
stuff was
never
predicted.
supposed to see. The production company and advertisers mocked in the script tried everything they could to blacklist the film, which makes you wonder, how can a movie that's so stupid be so harmful? Maybe because it got a little too close to the truth. Idiocracy shows a future society filled with people addicted to mind-numbing content and prawn, politics becoming a circus, one corporation taking over 50% of the economy, aggressive and dangerous policing, courtrooms that look more like live entertainment, cars that can be shut off by the government, and every inch of the world covered in advertising. Who would have thought that Mike Judge, creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, would create a step-by-step guide to build the dystopian hellscape we are living in today? The film follows military librarian Joe Bauer, played by Luke Wilson. He's a man with absolutely no goals or ambitions and is happy spending every day sitting around and watching TV. But when General Collins needs subjects for a year-long cryogenic sleep test, Joe is selected specifically because he is remarkably average and doesn't have any family. Unable to find a woman willing to join him, the government reaches out to a pimp named Upgrade to borrow his prostitute Rita as a model female companion. But unfortunately, after the cryosleep project is unexpectedly shut down by the government, Joe and Rita are forgotten in their sleep chambers and are buried in piles of garbage for the next 500 years. And over that time frame, society just kept making dumber and dumber decisions with a rapidly dropping average IQ. Scientists who were initially researching the cause became distracted by the financial demand for hair loss cures and erectile dysfunction, which feels emblematic of today's obsession with looks maxing. We have extremely popular influencers like Clavicular, who makes more money.
Bro, I heard he chopped his nose. Is that true? I don't know exactly what it meant, but I heard that he chopped his nose
than actual doctors by coaching his followers to use experimental methods to reach their, quote, genetic potential. Or Brian Johnson putting millions of dollars of research into de-aging his people. And just like Idiocracy, the growing demand for vanity procedures is skyrocketing. Getting a hair transplant used to be exclusively for the ultra-wealthy and celebrities. Now the number of procedures is growing exponentially, with the market size expecting to reach over $50 billion in 10 years. Meaning some of the greatest scientific minds of our generation who could have been working on a cure for cancer, Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson's, or dementia might instead end up chasing the next breakthrough in hair restoration, because that's where the money's at. But when Joe Bauer is released from cryosleep after the Great Garbage Avalanche of 2505, the first person he meets is Frito Pandeo, played by Dax Shepard, and he's essentially the living embodiment of everything that's gone wrong with humanity. Frito's name literally translates to stupid bag of chips. He sits in a massive lazy boy chair drinking some mysterious liquid through a straw about a foot away from a massive screen filled with a dozen windows of content, with the largest one playing a show called Ow, My Balls, where a guy just repeatedly gets hit in the nuts. The chair even has a toilet built in it so he never has to get up. And while some people literally have these exact multi-screen setups with chairs that don't even require them to move their head, Frito's stream of content feels eerily similar to XQC live streaming to tens of thousands of viewers playing Subway Surfers, an already hypnotic game, while displaying 5 different videos, all with audio and blasting electronic.
XQC actually did this? XQC actually did this? This is a real stream? Say dead ass.
Music on top of that to ensure the viewer's dopamine is spiked for hours.
What the hell's he doing?
He's crushing it. Snooze bomb!
And although this isn't something XQC regularly does, the demand for us to constantly be entertained by screens has reached all-time highs. Pew Research estimates that the typical home already has an average of 17 screens.
Let me think about my screens. Let me think. I got 4 monitors right here. We got phones, right? So then we're at 6. Got my laptop. Got an iPad. Got 2 TVs. Got a Nintendo Switch. We're at 11. We're at 11. We're at 11 at first thought. We're below average.
Put it in perspective,
Come on,
the
chat.
number of household
on,
devices
chat.
was 8 in
Give it up.
2015. That number has more than doubled in a decade. And as a result, the average American spends 7 hours per day looking at a screen, meaning people
I'm above
on
that.
average spend more time looking at screens than they do sleeping. But when Frito isn't watching mindless content, he's trying to get his rocks off.
Go away, Baton!
Idiocracy might actually have less emphasis on sexuality than the present day. Adult content exists now on 12% of all websites and is viewed by approximately 69% of American men and 40% of American women in any given year. The industry is estimated to generate over $100 billion, with OF being one of the major contributors to that statistic. It's inescapable.
Yikes.
Even 2 OnlyFans girls bought tickets to the NBA Western Conference Finals, sat right by
Everybody knows that the place to find a place.
Yeah.
Is a...
The OnlyFans is something that I can't get behind.
If you have a crack like this,
Welcome back, Frog.
well, you have a problem.
Today I'm learning how a cracked wall.
You missed
Behind the
what'd you miss? You missed a murder, you missed a pedophile, and now we're looking about how absolutely cooked we are as a generation. Yeah,
both, so
100 billion.
anytime he was on
100
screen, they were
B,
showing their chest,
and
which I
that's
will
even-
admit
that's
is
an
smart
incomprehensible
marketing,
number.
but it's just an example of how content that was once in dark corners of the internet or magazines that were in the back of the store now regularly intersects with mainstream entertainment. So when watching the film, a majority of people would laugh at Frito's situation. He's a hilarious character, but the irony is that a lot of people are slowly becoming him. They watch mind-numbing entertainment designed to help them forget about their lives and responsibilities while being guided by a cursed algorithm to aggressively self-satisfy instead of focusing on achieving higher goals. In Idiocracy,
Very true.
hyper-consumerism has taken over the world. Advertising has become so deeply integrated into society that many people have stopped distinguishing between what is an ad and what isn't. Most people have literal brands as a part of their names like Mountain Dew, Frito, and BMW. The city-sized Costco is so large that people basically live inside of it and use a train to get to different locations to constantly buy more things. When Joe enters the building for the first time, Frito admits that he got his law degree from Costco and it's considered prestigious. Even the single-use shirts and pants that everyone in Idiocracy wears every day to avoid washing clothes have brands on them like they're about to race on a NASCAR track. And while it looks bold and stupid in Idiocracy, if you were born after 1995, odds are you've never spent a day ad-free in your entire life.
No.
At present, people see roughly 5,000 ads per day. There are 5.3 trillion display
Wait,
ads showed online every
People were exposed to about 500 ads per day back in 1970. At present, people see roughly 5,000 ads per day. You're telling me I see 5,000 a day? I thought we'd be like the hundreds. Like maybe like 500, maybe all the way up to like maybe like stretching it 800. But I guess I'm just not thinking. I'm thinking about just screens. I mean, it's probably, outside every store, driving, every sign.
year.
Yikes.
On average, children see 20,000 30-second commercials each year. Adults see an average of 2 million of those on a yearly basis. When Joe is thrown out of Frito's
Holy
apartment,
crap.
he still can't fully believe what he's seeing. He's stumbling over trash and attempting to seek help from people, but all anyone can do is mock him for speaking intelligently, which, keep in mind, he's just speaking normally.
Joe was able to understand them, but when he spoke in an ordinary voice, he sounded pompous and to them.
He convinces himself he's hallucinating from the hibernation drugs and makes his way to St. God's Memorial Hospital. And yet when he gets there, the place looks more like a sketchy fast food restaurant on the edge of Las Vegas with slot machines, failing technology, and covered in grime. Slot machines at the hospital feels like the modern equivalent of sports betting apps. Gambling used to require an actual trip to a casino. Today, it lives in your pocket. You can literally place wagers from anywhere in the world, and I'd imagine that people do it in
Plus the streamers that are the heavy gambling streamers are showing everybody how dropping, $500,000 worth of Plinko balls, and then they're making their money back. Yeah, like that's legit, bro. And people fall for it, man. And people are doing it and they're losing their money because they're gambling in their own bed. It's sad.
hospital waiting rooms or doctor's offices. When Joe gets the chance to describe his symptoms to the nurse, she just stares blankly and holds her finger over a number of stick figures on colored buttons, which looks like a kid's toy that teaches toddlers to recognize colors and shapes, or like a modern fast food menu that allows you to simply touch the picture of the food you want. In Idiocracy, the healthcare system was so desperate to make things easier that every interaction is now automated. From the front desk to sharing information with the primary care physician, everything is so ridiculously simplified that a child can do it. And while today we're not quite pushing cartoonish buttons yet, this doesn't mean that hospitals and medical professionals are immune to cutting corners. There are now surveys reporting that some doctors are turning to AI tools intended for non-clinical uses to make clinical decisions. It's also the first time we see that this alternate future doesn't prioritize drinking water, which is honestly the most insane part of the movie. Drink water. Instead, the water fountains dispense a sports drink called Brondo, which is basically just a parody of Gatorade. And when Joe asks the medical staff for actual water, they just laugh at him and wonder why he wants to drink the stuff that goes into the toilet. Brondo is touted as this magic solution to everything because it, quote, has electrolytes.
Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
And electrolytes just so happen to be one of the buzzwords Logan Paul and Mr. Beast repeatedly used when marketing Prime and Lunchly as healthier alternatives.
More electrolytes.
Yeah.
Lunchables, yes. Hundreds of millions
A little
of
bit of a
units.
stretch for me on this
Their
one.
product, 80 less calories, 60% less sugar, more electrolytes. So they're advertising.
That's not just their brand, right? Like I get like they're the big names and it makes sense to point them out first, but like that's every new brand now. Every single new brand is healthier than the last. Every new brand gives you more energy or makes you see better, makes you remember things. Like that's every new brand nowadays. And it's all bullshit.
That more electrolytes are good. And that is the fundamental problem here in the lack of misunderstanding with electrolytes and hydration that has frankly gotten out of control with just this electrolyte hydration beverage market.
Another small detail in the film is that at one point, Joe is standing in a room with wallpaper made entirely out of dollar bills, which is symbolic of the currency becoming so worthless that it's more useful as decoration than actual money. While we're obviously nowhere near that point, Americans have watched the purchasing power of the dollar decline noticeably in recent years. Since 2020 alone, consumer prices have increased by roughly 25%, meaning what costs $100 just a few years ago now costs about $125. Put another way, a dollar.
Damn it! So what let's do, stick it out, stick it out, stick it out. Let's hear about how poor we're getting.
They track every
Let's
market,
hear about
so
how
you know when to
expensive
make
shit
your
is.
move.
No way.
And
Yes way.
we're back.
Realtor.com tracks
Dollar today buys you only about 80% of what it did at the start of the decade. All it takes is a few major economic mistakes and we'll be decorating our walls with worthless money. One of the more subtle, dark realities in Idiocracy was that everyone on Earth has a barcode tattoo for transactions, identification, and to digitally track where they are at all times. Without one, Joe is labeled as unscannable and immediately becomes a wanted man, running around a collapsing civilization suffering from a deadly drought that's killed all the crops and a devastated economy with a hyperinflated currency. The stupidity of it all is really funny, but it's hard to not notice how close we are to similar circumstances. For example, payment implants are already being widely considered by countries all over the world. According to BBC, a 2021 survey of more than 4,000 people across the UK and the European Union found that 51% would consider it. It doesn't take a genius to see how this could become a massive security issue for everyone. One day the chip implant is for our convenience, and the next it's telling us we can't leave our city after an unpaid parking ticket. Plus, our phones are already acting as a version of the barcode system anyways.
I was about
It's
to say
arguably
that.
worse. It knows where.
I was going to say that, I mean, never would I ever consider doing an implant, a chip implant. But the tracking aspect, the knowing where I am aspect, the knowing everything I want to do, knowing everything that I have done aspect, that's all that's in your phone. It's in your phone already. It's already happening.
Where we are, where we have been, who we talk to, what we are talking about, what we buy, what we search for, and what we are interested in. The difference is the citizens of Idiocracy were forced to carry a tracking device. We buy ours for more than $1,000 and upgrade it constantly to make it easier and more efficient for it to control us. But where Idiocracy really starts to feel unsettling is its portrayal of government, because it was supposed to be a completely absurd exaggeration of what a dysfunctional society might look like, and yet a lot of it feels not not that far from reality. After running around the city and learning more about the imminent collapse of human civilization, Joe Bauer is taken to trial to face the crime of being unscannable. The police are like cavemen in riot gear, and they pepper spray Joe while being completely detained and not a threat to them whatsoever. It only gets more ridiculous when he's placed in a large human-sized cage before being thrown into a courtroom, only for his defense attorney to be Frito Pandeo. The courtroom is not filled with respectful spectators, but more like a manic mob of sports fans tuning in for some drama. One of them has a large bike helmet with a camera mounted on, recording his point of view, which is essentially the modern equivalent of Meta Ray-Bans. The judge has a spotlight pointed on him as if it's one big theatrical event, and his name is the Honorable Hector the Hangman, and Joe's essentially believed to be guilty before he's able to state his case. Any effort to speak clearly is seen as a sign of weakness, and everyone cheers when he's sentenced to prison without a second thought. And again, while this seems like an exaggeration, it's not like we haven't struggled with a very similar problem. The first example would be court-appointed public defenders like Frito. They're obviously not as dumb as him, but their salaries are determined by county judges. They're less incentivized to take your calls, and they rarely have a voice in court due to being overbooked and underprepared. As far as the angry mob of spectators looking for entertainment in the movie, they might have been satisfied with the real-life fight that took place between a public defender and a judge in Brevard County, Florida.
Stop pissing me off. Just sit down. I'll take care of it. I don't need your help.
No, you know what? I'm the public defender. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to stand and represent my clients.
If you want to fight, let's go out back, and I'll just...
Bro. No way. No
But
way.
the people in Idiocracy are not the only ones looking for a show in the courtroom. Televised trials are a perfect example of how our justice system has slowly become a form of entertainment, but it comes with major issues. According to courtroom science observers, the challenge for trial attorneys is identifying potential jurors who hold these hidden biases. Jurors may be inclined to hide biases, particularly ones that they feel are less socially acceptable. When asked difficult or sensitive questions, jurors may try to deliver answers that make them sound better, offering half-truths if they know their full opinion may reflect poorly on them.
What?
Simply put, televised trials prevent the jury from doing their only job: find the truth. A juror shouldn't be concerned with how their opinions might be perceived by people watching at home. They're supposed to evaluate the facts and follow the evidence wherever it leads.
I was completely unaware of that. That is rough. That is horrible that it goes against the whole justice system as a whole. I mean, that's... Wow.
But since Joe was a moderately intelligent guy surrounded by dumbasses, he escapes from prison just by telling the guards that he's supposed to be leaving prison and not entering it, and they let him turn around and walk out. When he gets in the car with Frito, the AI in the car is triggered for trafficking a fugitive on their journey to Costco. They lose control of the car, it guides itself to the side of the road and shuts down, and gives the violent and unhinged police officers their exact location. And if you think this is some Black Mirror moment that could never happen, think again. Because a congressional bill was passed that will essentially allow government access to your car starting in 2027.
The trigger for all this...
What? What? This cannot be real.
...sits inside the 2021, all the way back to 2021, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Buried in Section 24220 is a mandate that forces the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to require advanced impairment driving technology.
Bro, we're cooked.
Turn after turn, era after era.
And they're off.
Bro.
I love it. That's how they hide it. In your car that's sold to you here in America, that phrase sounds harmless on purpose. Here's what's coming. Cameras locked on your face, sensors tracking your eyes, software analyzing your behavior, your attention, even your emotional state. The system doesn't just look for alcohol impairment, it looks for anything it interprets as a risk. Are you tired, distracted, stressed? That's enough for the system to decide you aren't fit to drive.
Joe gets trapped.
Bro, then what? Bro, then what? Well, it just shuts down? It just shuts down or it pulls you over? Like, holy shit, man. That is bad news bears for everybody. I don't even have anything. educated to say on the matter. I didn't know that was a thing. That's actually a passed bill. We're cooked.
Tracked down by the police, but instead of going directly back to jail, he's actually brought to the Oval Office of the White House. His IQ results came back, and in Idiocracy, him having an average IQ in the past makes him a complete genius in the dystopian future. So they hired him to solve a major problem. He needed to figure out why none of the crops were growing, as the whole world was running out of organic and natural nutritional food. However, when they get to the White House, it looks more like a dilapidated mansion in the hood rather than the highest office in the land. The Secretary of State is like a parody of a modern influencer who promotes Carl's Jr. even in his private conversations because he claims they pay him to do it.
Says who?
The IQ test you took in prison. You got the highest score in history. Brought to you by Carl's Jr. I'm the Secretary of State. Brought to you by Carl's Jr.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because they pay me every time I do.
But in the White House is where Terry Crews steals the show. As former pro wrestler and 5-time Ultimate SmackDown champion, President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho. He's a charismatic, ex-adult film star and entertainer. He's not afraid to support violence and tap into humanity's dumbest instincts to get exactly what he wants. He's also not afraid to hire dumber members of his family, like his stepbrother, who is a complete idiot yet is the official Secretary of Education. Listening to how Crews describes this character, you can tell that this silly role was still something he was deeply passionate about.
I knew this guy. When I tell you, I knew President Camacho because he reminded me of my time of growing up in Flint, Michigan, in church, where you had a pastor or a preacher who you knew was a hustler. You knew he wasn't telling you the truth. If you just put $5 in the box, $5 will get you what you want. And I was like, that's the guy. He's fooling America.
It's honestly impossible to ignore the similarities between President Camacho and President Trump, especially considering that Trump himself has entered the WWE for self-promotion long before getting elected.
Yep.
Camacho speaks in very basic sentences and simplifies massive problems with short, easy solutions, which is exactly like Trump.
I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy.
We're going to bring those prices way down.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper. Groceries, cars, everything. We're going to get the prices down.
I know it's bad right now with all that starving bull. And the dust storms, and we running out of French fries and burrito coverings.
Yeah.
But I got a solution. I got a 3-point plan to fix everything. Break it down. Number one, we got this guy not sure. Number two, he's got a higher IQ than any man alive. And number three, he's gonna fix everything.
Just like Camacho, Trump's promises sound like someone who is either lying in your face or doesn't understand how much power corporations and bureaucracy have over what we hope to change. Another thing Idiocracy displays is Camacho turning his speech into pure entertainment to hype up the crowd instead of clearly explaining his plans for change. And at this point, American politics spend more time blasting music, dancing, and chanting positive affirmations to a roaring audience rather than having thoughtful discussions on how it's actually going to get done. When Joe is appointed as the Secretary of the Interior, he quickly discovers that the entire world has been brainwashed into believing that every living thing requires Brawndo, the thirst mutilator. The sports drink with electrolytes is believed to be so essential that they've replaced it with water to put on their crops. The company supports 50% of the global economy and is the direct cause of the failing crops because it has created a layer of salt on top of all the vital farmland, which is a perfect metaphor for what happens when corporations become so large and influential that their financial interests begin to outweigh basic common sense. Nobody stops to ask whether or not pouring the sports drink on the crops is actually working because too many people are making money from the system. Kind of reminds me of how AI data centers are draining us of fresh water at an alarming rate and how nobody is stopping to think of what will happen when we have no more water to drink. It's not hard to imagine that corporations, or one corporation, will lead to the downfall of society. What's ironic is, corporations are also the reason why this film was considered a complete failure, and that's because the creator, Mike Judge, specifically specifically wanted to poke fun of real brands that people recognize. The designer who created this dystopian, ad-flooded environment, Ellen Lampel, said, "I think so many people see that it wasn't done in any kind of malintent except for just to make an overall statement about we are really directed by advertising and how it impacts our life, and we become part of advertising. We help perpetuate the marketing." But what made Idiocracy so funny and immersive was that it satirized real brands. Starbucks, H&R Block, Carl's Jr., and Costco are all made fun.
Raising Cane's chicken fingers.
And then we get hit with Raising
One
Cane's. This whole video makes you hate this, doesn't it? Makes you despise this ad. This ad trying to take your life away.
Fun of in the film, but initially Mike's production partner, 20th Century Fox, was legally concerned about the ramifications of using actual brands to make fun of. For example, he wanted to satirize tanning salons in America that were secretly offering happy endings to customers. So he made a joke about how Starbucks coffee now offered extra foam to men willing to pay a premium for their special lattes.
That's disgusting, dude.
And when it was in pre-production, I was, they run it by legal, and I'm going, man, I don't know how I'm going to come up with something better than the Starbucks thing, because it's not funny if it's not a known place, Right. And so legal, an interesting thing happened. I mean, I don't know how this happened, but they said, they said no, and then they said, well, I just said, so what can it be, satire and this? And they said, well, what would help us is if you didn't just pick on them, if it was a bunch of companies. I was like, okay. So then that's how we ended up with that whole red light district in there in the movie, where it's like, I think it's like H&R Block, adult tax return with release, and like there's like a Pollo Loco or Pollo Borracho adult chicken. I don't know. And then we just did everything.
Unsurprisingly, all of the corporate brands that signed up for what they thought was easy advertising in a new movie were extremely upset when they found out that the entire film was making fun of them, and as a result, it basically destroyed the film. According to Mike Judge, Fox's enthusiasm for the movie mysteriously disappeared, and it was one of the most under-financed projects he ever made. It was an impossible schedule, an impossible budget. Every day, it seemed, was at least 16 hours. It was rough. I didn't want to be irresponsible and demand more money than the thing was probably worth. There was one meeting where we were arguing over a shot that cost $3,000 or something like that, and at some point I said, I'll just pay for it. I'd rather pay $30,000 than ever have this meeting again. Terry Crews later admitted that making fun of the brands is what killed the movie at the box office, because Fox was too scared of pissing off their advertisers.
Because we used real corporations in our comedy, these companies gave us their name thinking they were going to get pumped up. All these real corporations are like, wait a minute, Carl's Jr.
Welcome to Carl's Jr. Would you like to try our extra big taco?
And so Fox, who owned the movies, decided we're going to release this in as few theaters as legally possible. So it got a release in probably 3 theaters over one weekend, and it was sucked out into the vortex.
Sadly, Mike...
Bro, that is insane. It got dropped for the couple of theaters. It got pulled out instantly just due to Big Man saying so. Opening week, it made $124,000. What is the legs? I don't know what legs means, so we're going to skip it. Domestic shares, 88.8%. The budget was $2.4 million.
Judge hoped for a $30 million budget, but he only got $2.4 million, and with brief appearances in a small number of select theaters and little to no publicity, it turned into a guaranteed flop, only earning $500,000 at the worldwide box office. But this is where things get really interesting. Although corporations seemed to do everything they could to get the movie blacklisted, Idiocracy became a cult classic, making almost $10 million in DVD VHS rentals and sales within the first year of its release in 2006. And it only continues to get more and more popular with each passing year because it's so damn close to our modern reality that a dumb comedy looks more like a prophecy. What's funny and scary is that during the filming of one very specific scene, Mike Judge realized he may have not been making a prediction about the future at all. He may have just been exaggerating a reality that already existed. In the scene where Joe runs from the hospital near the beginning of Idiocracy, he finds a movie theater that is showing a film called At. It's a 90-minute recording of a man's butt. Occasionally,
what?
there's a fart or a little movement, and the people watching are engaged the entire time and find it so funny that it gets several Oscars, including Best Screenplay. But here's the scary
What
part.
the
When
fuck?
Mike Judge and director of photography Tim Surstedt set up the movies and invited 200 extras to the screening, the assumption was that this was so simple and stupid that they would have to actually tell everyone to laugh on cue. Mike said, "We actually had to shoot the movie, which wasn't fun. They just sent Polaroids to casting people. I should apologize to them for having to do that." But according to Tim, we literally found a theater a little bit south of Austin in a suburb, and we had the film of the guys that was cinched up on their projector, and we had probably 200 extras in there. We rolled the footage and everybody started laughing, exactly as they say in the script. They thought
what?
that with something this dumb, they'd actually have to tell the audience to laugh, but it turns out they just actually broke out in laughter while watching a film called App. Judge told an interviewer, "I remember saying to Tim, what are we doing? We should just release App." In order to prevent our impending doom, we'd have to fight our own nature or selfish desires. We'd have to stop demanding maximum convenience. We'd have to be okay with being bored. We'd have to fight the urge to boost our dopamine with constant content and unhealthy foods. We'd have to embrace the suffering that makes life a little bit harder because we learned that corporations will swoop in and sell us the fastest and most addicting solution. But the sad reality is that we'd all have to do it together in order to make that change happen. Most people will choose short-term comfort over long-term well-being, which is why we are likely going to get to Idiocracy sooner than we thought. Mike Judge thinks we are already there. As he stated after the movie's success, "I'm no prophet. I was off by 490 years." And if watching societies collapse is your thing, people today are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to die on Mount Everest.
Yeah. Pat CC's right. And I don't think it goes without saying, everybody knows this. I mean, you know you shouldn't consume as much as you do on the web. You know you shouldn't eat the shit food. You know you shouldn't splurge for everything. But we all do a little bit, right? Like, even if you're aware of it, you still do it a little bit. And for it to stop, you gotta get the mass majority to only go for a little bit. You don't cut out completely, but a little bit. And for that reason, it's never gonna stop. It won't. It's impossible. It's gonna keep rolling along until we're kaputzt.